Never waste a good crisis. And when it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it when it can have a very positive impact.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Stay tuned for politics and religion.
Well, this is the device coming to Israel today from the Czech Republic. The Israelis should follow the Czech example of a two-state solution, the article carried in the Jerusalem Post says. In adopting the two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Israel should follow the example set by the Czech Republic. President Shimon Peres told Czech Foreign Minister Jan Kohut on Wednesday. Now, this is Shimon Peres, the president of Israel, speaking. He's saying we need to divide into two states. He's coming out publicly and saying that just the day after the peace talks rebegan between Israel and the Palestinians. We are following in your footsteps as far as a two-state solution of dividing one land is concerned, Peres told his guest, referring to the amicable division of a former Czechoslovakia. The Czech Republic is an encouraging example of two states being good neighbors, he said. Now, while I'm finishing the rest of this article, I want you to keep in mind what the Bible says should happen. God said to Moses, and then after Moses, Joshua, when I bring you into the land that I promised to your father Abraham, you are to utterly drive out the inhabitants of the land. You are not to make any treaties with them, because I have given you this land for your inheritance forever and to your seed after you. Now, here we find the descendants of Abraham, and of course it's about 3,000 years later, maybe 3,500 years later now, after Joshua, and we find the descendants of Abraham openly declaring in the headlines of the entire world, we should follow your example. We should divide the land. It's really interesting that the name Peres means to divide, and Shimon Peres is here openly espousing the dividing of the land. The article goes on to say, recalling what a poor country, Czechoslovakia, had been at the renewal of relations in comparison to the success it has become, Peres termed the Czech Republic a model country and an island of stability in Europe. Kohut said that he was happy that peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians were being renewed and hoped that such talks would yield tangible results. The Czech Republic, he added, would be happy to support a peace settlement in the region, and as a member country of the European Union would be glad to contribute to the talks with the aim of bringing peace, stability, progress, and security to the region. Now, we're dealing with the Czech Republic. It was the Czech Republic that held out the longest against signing the Lisbon Treaty back in November. Actually, November the 3rd is when they finally capitulated and signed the signature. And the person responsible for signing for the Czech Republic was so sad. He signed it, shrugged his shoulders, walked away, and comments were made that that was the end of Czech sovereignty. So, divide the country first, then lose the country next. That's the pattern of the Czech Republic. And yet Shimon Peres is so void of understanding that he is actually publicly advocating that Israel should follow in the footsteps of the Czech Republic. Now, let me remind you one more time. What Shimon Peres is advocating here today is exactly opposite what God told Israel to do. Now, does that sink in? If you don't believe there is a God, it doesn't make you any difference. If you don't believe the Bible is true, it won't make you any difference. But if you do believe in God and you do believe in the Bible, it is shocking to read the big, bold headlines. Israel should follow Czech example of two-state solution, so says Shimon Peres. That's shocking to see one of the leading statesmen of all of Israel's modern history, to see him publicly, boldly advocating an anti-God, anti-Bible position. That's exactly what he's doing. Well, the Czech Republic has now lost its sovereignty. It now lives under a single president in the United States of Europe, better known as the European Union. What will happen to Israel? Well, Israel will almost lose her freedom as well, except Jesus Christ will intervene at the last moment. If the mark of the beast were enacted today, would you take it? Now think about it. If not, what would you do? This situation is coming. It is going to happen. The legislation has now been introduced into Congress to prepare for it. We'll talk about it today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it.
So what do you think about when you hear the numbers 666? I'll never forget years ago, we kept hearing these reports from Israel, from Jerusalem, in fact, of these license plates that had 666. When I finally was able to go to Jerusalem for myself, sure enough, there they were. But I wanted to know what it meant. Did it have anything to do with the biblical mark of the beast, or was it just a coincidence? Well, I come to find out that the Agate Bus Company, all of the transportation companies in Israel are given a specific identity number, and the Agate Bus Company at the time, their number was 666, and that's the reason they had that on all their license plates. So obviously not the mark of the beast, but enough to make your hair stand on end nonetheless. You know, as a kid growing up in church, every once in a while we'd have one of those prophecy preachers come by, and he would talk about the 10-horned beast with the great iron teeth. He'd talk about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. He would talk about Armageddon, blood flowing to the horse bridles, and always got around to preaching about 666, the mark of the beast. And then I went home to bed to dream about those things all night as a 9, 10, 11-year-old kid growing up. So I remember those things very vividly. Now, I thank God for them, frankly.